Hi, welcome to another session of LAMC. This a special session we have today is dedicated to digital marketing and promotion. The name of this panel is Tengo la Voz, Digital Marketing and Promotion. And we have a great lineup of guests that are going to be talking about this, not just guests, but good friends too, real experts from the industry that can talk about digital marketing and promotion. Wanted to thank also the entire LAMC crew for putting this together and inviting us all. My name's Adi Harley. I lead label relations at Instagram and Facebook. I'm based here in Miami. It's great to be here. And with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague, AJ.
Hi, I'm AJ Alvarez. I work with Symphonic Distribution. I am the head of LATAM client marketing. So I work with our artists and labels on devising rollout strategy and creating the best possible marketing campaigns around catalog and new releases. Mina?
Hi, how are you? I'm Mayna Nevares, CEO and founder of Nevares Communications. We are a marketing and publicity team, and also we develop the strategies for our clients for their album releases, touring, live events, among others.
Good, I think that's me. So my name is, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for the invitation from LAMC, and super happy to be here this year. My name is Enrique Fares Leite. I am the head of music industry relations for TikTok and the parent company ByteDance for Latin America. And I think now it's with Gilbert.
Guys, I'm Gil Gastelum, founder of Cosmica Artists based here in Los Angeles. We're a marketing, management, and record label, and celebrating 17 years in the business next month. So thank you, and to my good friend Paul.
Hi, this is Paul Dryden. I work at ATO Records. We're an independent label in New York City for the past 20 years. We have artists like Chicano Batman and Rodrigo y Gabriela, as well as Black Pumas, My Morning Jacket, and Alabama Shakes.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Great. So let's get kicked off then. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys was how digital marketing and promo has evolved over the last 5 to 10 years, and just to think about how we've evolved, because back in the day, at least when I started doing digital marketing over a decade ago, it was like a nice to have. But nowadays, if you don't have a really solid digital marketing strategy, you don't really have a strategy, and it's become integral, and everyone in the industry now knows and value this. There was even a time, a few years back, where there's definitely still a few skeptics hanging on, like, what's this digital marketing thing? Is it really worthwhile? But I think, at this point where, everybody realizes that it's an instrumental part of how artists themselves have taken their social media presence to the next level, posting daily, finding ways to connect with fans that were previously unthinkable. I know on our side at Facebook, everyone's been very focused on providing the right tools to help artists connect with their fan bases, build community more effectively. And nowadays, there's a panoply of different ways in which artists can connect directly with their fans. And the same goes on the Instagram side. We believe deeply in empowering artists and creators to express themselves. And then, if you add to the pandemic, the last year, that's now changed things yet again. And the importance of digital marketing and promotion through these digital means have become absolutely vital. So, whether that means you're going to, live, in the case that we work on Facebook Live or Instagram Live, there's more than 800 million people going live every day. And since launch live on Facebook, it's been over 10 billion broadcasts. But that's just like some of our experience, on the Facebook and Instagram side. How do you guys see the evolution of digital marketing and promotion in your sides of the business? And maybe I'll throw it to Paul this time, and we can take it from there.
Oh boy. I remember when, well, let's say even back to, Napster. I remember being a teenager and on Napster and just being so excited because I could discover so much music and I could download it for free and I could just like run wild and have a party on Napster and enjoy that experience, especially as a lover of independent music, independent culture. It was the beginning, I think, of where we are today in the sense of like a level playing field, where independent artists, major label artists, artists in between, it's more of like a field where everyone can compete. Obviously, there's certain advantages of being on bigger labels. There's plenty of crap associated with, bigger pop stars and their kind of role in the DSPs. But I think that it's been interesting to see how it's evolved. And, in the past couple of years, even the independent artist community, the alternative music community, I think has improved its place within the digital music, digital marketing world. And, you see plenty of stories where DIY artists, independent label artists are finding success, both, from a marketing side or from a streaming side, or from building a digital business to sell t-shirts and vinyl, and so I think that's really promising. I also find the data and the back-end analytics to be kind of one of the most exciting things too, where we can really understand what's going on, with our artists. We can follow trends on a minute-by-minute basis. And I think that's also changed the ability to be independent. Because before, you would depend on your label or a major corporation to tell you any sort of information, any sort of data. And now it's all our control, as an artist, as a manager, as just like a label team that's independent, we can access this information and really follow what's going on. So that's like how I see it's changed a lot. Now we look at the past year. It's like looking, in the pandemic, how it's changed. I like to hope that it's forced the music community to become more creative and more, think more outside the box when it comes to digital marketing. I remember a year ago in March, and even just in April, May, June last year, I was launching albums, and it was disastrous. It was catastrophic like type of experiences for campaigns you've been preparing for years. But I think we're in a better place now. And I think that, it's forced artists and labels and people in the industry to be more creative and to push themselves to try new things, and also to understand that content, it's so cliche, but content is king. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, your iPhone from your bedroom, although that's fine. But I think artists and teams have realized that, you can be creative with creating your content. You can make things that are cheap and resourceful for $500 that can go viral. And it can be interesting and compelling. And while we're all jaded by sitting here on Zoom, or we're all jaded by watching artists on live, streams, I still think there's ways to break through. And I'm still an optimist that we're at a better moment now than we were. And we're becoming stronger as a digital, music community as a result of what we learned in this pandemic. So here we go.
Definitely, Paul. Is there anyone else that wanted to add to what Paul said about how digital marketing and promo has evolved in the last 10 years?
It's really kind of everything now. Whereas before it'd be like, oh yeah, let's have that digital marketing meeting, back in the day. And now it's like, when do I not find myself in a digital marketing meeting with the people that we hire or with our artists? I mean, that really is, it's always been there, or has been, at least probably for the last, probably longer than 10 years, but now it really is the cornerstone of any kind of marketing or any kind of plan. even if it's just a digital release. And, you know, we try to be creative. You know, there are certain things, you know, obviously from a label or even a management perspective, sometimes, you know, you really need to listen to your artists. They're the ones that have their ears closest to the street. So sometimes what we do is we work with the artists. We'll give them the budget. We'll be the sort of like the bank, and they're really like, they know how to, like, you know, do the spend. They know where they're hitting at. You know, their job is evolving as musicians as well as artists as well. They're the ones that are having to look at their analytics almost on a daily basis. So they really do, you know, it's important that you also do listen to the artists as well, because if they're the type of artist that can have that balance between, you know, their art and commerce, you know, they're going to know where, if they should spend money in Portland, Oregon, for example. So, you know, it's exciting because you really can bolster that partnership that everybody talks about. So it's amazing how much it's evolved, and like Paul said, in the course of this pandemic so far, it's even changed even that much more since the end of 2019. As crazy as that sounds.
Definitely. How about you, AJ? How do you see the distributor's role in marketing and promo for your artists at Symphonic?
It's been really interesting, actually, to see how distribution has changed in the realm of marketing. I think that, you know, it started out as like the distributor was kind of like your kind of wall between the DSPs and yourself. And now we've kind of become, you know, the handshake between the artist and the DSPs and ourselves. I think our role specifically, you know, is threefold, really. There's a couple of things. I think one of the things that we at Symphonic really do well is education. We know the resources that are available. We know what the DSPs are asking us for and what they're looking for, and we can bring that back to the artists. I think on the other end, we can advocate really well for our artists because we believe in indie. We believe in like what is independent music, and we want artists to make a sustainable living off of their art. And so we are also advocating on that front, like, hey, you know, like this doesn't make sense, or, you know, like half of our artists are not going to be able to do this, etc. So we're able to be that voice. On the marketing front specifically, I think one of the things that we do really well is obviously we're in regular contact with the DSPs. Enrique would know this really well too. We talk with all the DSPs very regularly. We're talking with them on a constant basis, and we're delivering content to them. Not only delivering content, but delivering priority content. And priority content is defined differently by each distributor. But for us, it's really about like, what is quality? What are, you know, who's putting the work in? You know what I mean? Who is actually putting in the marketing? Like Gilbert actually brought up, which was very important, is like, you don't have a conversation about a release except that, hey, what are we doing to market this release, you know? And that information gets back to the distributor, and that is what we communicate to our DSPs partners. So I think that, you know, the role of DSPs in marketing is ever evolving. There are multiple DSPs like ourselves, actually, that offer marketing services. And for the right client, that totally makes sense. You know, we would never have somebody come on board who didn't make sense for marketing services. Essentially, we want to make sure that the relationship is good for that client as it is for us as well. But likewise, the people we are bringing on board for various services, including distro in general, we're making sure that we're getting those artists and those labels, of course, in front of the DSPs, and we're making sure that we're having that open communication, and any information that they're sending us, that we're getting it to them. So I think that it's really like it's multiple facets of marketing that we try to touch on. I think the bulk of it really boils down to education, though. I think any really good distributor is going to be able to give you access to the resources, or at least give you the information that will give you that access to those resources that make you profitable. Like I said, we want you to be sustainable as an artist and make your living as an artist in this industry.
Absolutely. And what would you guys say is the most important digital marketing tool for your artists nowadays? Is it social media? Is it DSP pitching? Combination of the two? How does it all work?
Be honest.
I would say it's a 360. We need a combination of all. We cannot spend all the money in digital marketing, and we cannot rely all the arm on the DSPs, because sometimes the artist wants to depend on to be number one on a playlist or to have an extra push. And also lately, like, I think we're going backwards to the grassroots marketing again, like it used to be, because the digital place is so crowded that now we're seeing again using billboards, street marketing, television. I've seen now an increase in streams when we do television, when it has a strategy behind. Radio again is playing a big role in music, and thinking out of the box at the end of the day. Like, there's over 20,000 releases, I believe, a week. I'm not pretty sure, but it's before, like maybe 2-3 years before, an artist was releasing a track every 3-4 months. Now sometimes they release every week, and with different artists. Like, a remix doesn't mean that it's gonna make a track to be a hit anymore. Like, before, people used to do a remix maybe 2 years ago when the song was already a hit. Now you have hundreds of remixes, same artists every week. So it's how you can make the people notice your track. There's so many releases. So how you get into the people's attention and the fans' attention, even the fan base from the artists, they have so much information. So on my side of the marketing and PR side, I feel that we're working triple. We have to think more to be more strategic, and sometimes with less time that we used to plan. And many of 5 years ago, we have like 3-4 months to plan. We have 6 months of working a track. Now we're working sometimes a different track per artist every 4 weeks. So it's more complicated sometimes to establish a song or an artist. So it's a combination of all.
I was listening to it and I was just thinking with myself, what it is exactly this digital markets, right? Because as you were mentioning, you can refer to 10 years ago digital markets and it's one thing, but nowadays it's a total different definition for sure. And I was even thinking that from this digital marketing area, we're passing to a more digital presence area where the artist needs to understand how he's going to live in the digital world, way more just thinking on digital marketing per se, because it's way more how you have a digital life as an influencer and as an artist and as am I back? I'm really sorry.
You're back. You're back now. Try again. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that I think with the evolution that we had from the marketing presence of the artist, from this live presence where he needs to decide what's his focus in the digital universe and his narrative to be there, it's exactly a very important change in the movement, because you cannot think in singular time needs that you have every time that you have a single release. You have to understand what's your narrative to the digital and what is your digital life more than anything, because there is a presence, there is the voice that you bring and how you communicate with the different types of audiences and different type of digital environments. And I think all of those before were lines in a planning for a marketing strategy. Nowadays, they are literally part of an artist's career and an artist's life, of course, and how much you expose yourself. So it's such a different and more complex world for sure, that my perception is that coming from a no interest area where it was hard for us who were in the digital, try to convince the artists to pay attention to us. Look, there is a streaming platform and this new business and this new model for consumption is important, to an area where it was very rational, the interest that we got, because everybody understood that there was a model over there. So there is a lot of rational around. Now we are in a more overwhelmed, looking for narratives and focus in the artist side, I feel, because there is a lot, there is probably more than what they can do and understand. So they need to find out what narrative that they're looking for.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Enrique. I think that's a really great point because, before, we would often look at the marketing plan was based around a product, right? Whether that was a t-shirt, a ticket, a video, a single release. But now, since digital marketing, digital presence, to Enrique's point, it's almost like an extension of the art, and it's an extension of the personality of the artist. And so if that's the case, then it's almost like you have to have an always on strategy. And so, if you fall into the trap of like going, only really around the promo cycles, you're missing a huge trick, because ultimately you need to keep populating. You need to feed your fans, right? Your fans are hungry. They want more. They want more from you. They want to understand, how you're living, how you're recording, how, they want to be able to connect with you and be part of your community throughout the year, and not just around a certain promo. So what are some of the things that you can do that kind of fill the gap, if you like, in between promo, whether that's like doing regular, like you're doing yoga session with your fans, or you're doing you're doing a throwback Thursday where you're bringing back catalog, and you don't need to wait on like the new single. AJ, I can see you've got a point to add.
I have this conversation with artists on probably a daily basis. So I do want to go into it. I think it's having that link in lifestyle. What is your lifestyle, and how does that link to your fan base? What are those things that you can personally relate to in your fan base? When I was working back, I remember years ago at VP Records, I worked with a reggae label, and we had an artist who was totally vegan and totally, very spiritual and very much about yoga. She was a certified yoga instructor. And that was a lifestyle part of her brand, essentially. And it was something that we were kind of able to hook into and create different opportunities around. And essentially, it's just looking into your lifestyle and digging in and figuring out what are those opportunities that I have available so that I can build, obviously, AD, it's about socials and how do I interact with this fan base. And especially now that we've had a pandemic and basically we've cut off any kind of physical interaction, we've had this, very digital interaction, and figuring out how do we reach out? How do we get to people, and how do we connect? And in the digital space, it's connecting with lifestyles, it's connecting with, and it opens you up to so many opportunities just within the fan base itself. Not even if you completely cross out just DSPs and any of that kind of stuff, if you're just looking at opportunities, I think that the most opportunity really lies in like, what are you interested in, and who else is interested in this, and building very niche fan bases, because as you know, we've got over 20,000, and I think somebody else already mentioned it, maybe it was Mina, or over 20,000 releases going live weekly. So if that's the case, then what do you have in common with anyone who's actually looking for new music, with anyone who's actually looking for new content? And that is really like your lifestyle. And what are you actually trying to market? You're trying to market who you are and what the opportunity is there, and what do you bring to the stage? And I think personally that's really the ultimate opportunity.
And we always say, the authenticity piece is such an important part of how you put yourself across in your socials, because if you, to your point about the artist used to work with a VP that was really into yoga, of course you could hook into that as a lifestyle, as a hook, to be able to build community around that, because it was authentic and it was something that the artist really was for real into. But you can't just conjure these things up. So tapping into the authenticity is key. And Hiki, I had another question for you. In terms of like breaking new artists and songs, what are some of the strategies that you've been working on at TikTok to break new songs and artists?
I don't think it's in our behalf to break the new songs and artists. We have a platform, and the platform provides a very good environment for artists to be known and songs to go viral. And I think this is much related exactly to being a platform, but that puts the accents on TikTok on content, more exactly the universe of following and fan base. So basically, TikTok gives a lot of value to the creativity and quality of content that is proposed, no matter who is proposing this content. When we understand this, of course, it's a reflex of society, right? To have several bubbles existing at the same time, trending and creating dialogue inside the platform all the time. So some of them are going to grow because they're going to, of course, make sense for a bigger audience, and some of those not. And when you translate this to artists, what we're trying to always tell them is two things. One, as you said, we need them to be really themselves when they are proposing something to the platform, because there is no way to make people understand that we're doing something that you really don't want to, especially for this new generation. I think TikTok is a very strong place for new generations, and they are very careful about the meanings behind what they are following. But what we always say is there is two different presences in TikTok. There is one for the artist itself, and of course it needs a more, I would say, think narrative to be there, who you want to be. It doesn't need to be your personal life. TikTok is not about that. It can be something that comes from your creative life. So what we value as a community on TikTok a lot is understanding and I would say felicitating creativity all around, right? So any way that you can come, it can be comedy, it can be dancing, it can be doing pranks or sports, but everything that seems to be creative, I think it's a very good fit for our audience. And then the artist needs to think this narrative. In the other hand, the music goes very independently in the platform. Of course, an artist that has a very good fan base and presence has a very big start. But it's always an open run. So you can have a song that was translated, and we have seen a lot of cases. I mean, take the Dreams one as an example, because I think all of us have the age to appreciate that song coming back. But the song was literally presented to the audience and became viral just because of a vibe. It's a concept that's very close to advertisement, if you think. I mean, someone understood the vibe of that song, created an environment that was image plus music combined in a single interpretation that was very inspiring to everybody else to jump into this trend, right? And then you create in those moments. But I think it's always trying to be, when the artist bringing the presence, try to be himself all the time and trying to connect and try to show himself as part of this community, because it is a community and people literally will jump in or not, depending on how they feel this person is part of that community, understand the community. And in the other hand, the music is another full set of chances every time that you have a song out that can come for by you deciding on strategies to excite or create the fire amongst the users to be using, which means not listening, but literally creating content around your music in the platform. And then from there, that song translating something that for that specific territory or age group or niche of consumers represent something. It can be, as we said, the vibe, walking on skates, but it can be also, I don't know, just declaring yourself to your beloved. Love is always what goes viral most in the history of the music industry, right? So
yeah,
love, man.
Yeah, love is definitely always a winner. But no, that's awesome. And we definitely see like so many sparks happening around, the production of like stories, for example. Thinking about the Instagram and Facebook side. Similarly, one of the things that we've seen that really helps kind of viralize music, whether it's on stories, through the music stickers or on reels, and using that as a way to create buzz around the song, which can really kind of take a life of its own. And to your point, that can be like a throwback Thursday where there's a catalog discovery, or it can be we've done some pre-release snippets release stickers on Instagram with Lele Pons or Anita, where, you know, like for a week, you know, it's warming up. And by the time that the song is made available on DSPs, on Spotify or wherever else, Apple and so on, it's already hot and it's already got a buzz, which is a really great way to just generate extra interest and make sure that the fans feel as though they have ownership of that song before it's even released. And yeah, to your point, it's not just about the consumption, but also the production of those stories with the stickers or the reels, which makes it that much more engaging for fans and giving them the ownership and additional kind of buzz around it. And then just being able to manage your socials as a new artist can really make a difference, because it's very much a sort of democratizing factor. You don't have to have a huge radio budget as a new artist to break a song in the old days. But you know, if you have the right creative idea and the right smart social strategy, you know, you can be just as effective at reaching new audiences and taking it to the next level that way. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add anything in terms of how to break songs or even artists. Paul?
I would like to add in that the most it has to be authentic. I've seen so many plans that it's like copy-paste plan that everybody use the same influencers, same TikTokers, and the fans, they're very smart. They know when an influencer is paid or when the labels use the same, you know, and not every influencer goes with the brand of the artist or the brand of the track. So I know it's a lot of work, but I suggest to think a little bit out of the box. If the artist motivates maybe younger moms to find younger moms on TikTok, or if your client loves cooking, maybe we can look on chefs that are on TikTok on Reels, you know. So basically, that's my advice always to my clients, is to not to copy what others are doing, because sometimes also in the era of social media, they receive so much pressure watching what other artists are doing, and they're not focusing on their data and what their fan base is really looking. And sometimes that's why we've seen so many artists frustrated with their releases, because sometimes they want to copy and they don't want to create new plans. And that's our advice. And also, as AJ say, more than ever, we have to educate our clients of different trends, because what I used to create with our team 6 months ago no longer works right now in 2021. And what we used to do 2 years ago is completely different. Like, the music industry has changed completely, and probably in the next 2-3 months, it's going to be different as well. So education it's a key. And it's important also that new artists and established artists as well listen to the team, listen to the experts of new strategies, also to attend to the trainings that DSPs platforms like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, sometimes the tools that they're giving and resources to the artists, so they see the changes in the platforms.
Totally. I think on my side, for breaking songs and breaking artists, I think the biggest thing that so many artists and just like labels don't think about is patience and persistence. Like, so many of these campaigns are like, you know, expecting it to fucking blow up in a week or even a month. Like, that is so unrealistic. Like, 99% of campaigns, that will not happen. And the best campaigns that I've been involved with in my career in terms of breaking artists and breaking songs have taken 2 years. Like, 2 years for one, you know, song or, you know, one album. And this week, I'll give an example. I have this song called Colors by Black Pumas. We released it it was written 7 years ago, and we released it 2 years ago. And this week, 2 years from the release, it was just added to K-Rock in Los Angeles. And so that just shows you, like, you have to be patient and persistent. And we've been pushing this song every day for 2 years. And I mean, I'm sure everyone at Spotify, Apple, and all around our, you know, kind of partners, they're all just like, stop talking about this song. But we were just said, like, we're not giving up on this song, and we're gonna get there, you know. And we've been patient and persistent, and we've had wins, you know. It's not like we've been saying like, oh, you know, we just know it and we're not seeing it yet. We've had little wins and little victories, and actually I have to say, like, in Latin America was probably where we had our first victories, you know, and because of the data where we were able to see, you know, and on YouTube in Colombia and YouTube in Brazil, we started seeing it going viral, and that's where we knew, like, okay, this is something's happening, and this is something real, and it may not be in the US, it may not be in Europe, but like we feel the enthusiasm for this song, and we just kind of traced that and tried to bring it to new territories and new markets and new platforms, and just try to look at every single, you know, element and how we could expand it. And here we are. We know radio is the slowest you know, factor in all of these elements, but when radio gets behind something, and when K-Rock starts playing something, and and you know, reaches that point, that's when you know it started to reach a tipping point, and it's like really reaching the masses. And so that's super exciting. But you know, in a lot of cases, I feel like a team might have given up on the song.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, tenacity is the name of the game. But in terms of traditional media, obviously, like the cadence and the reaction, the way of working in traditional media is so different than digital marketing. But I want, to your point about radio and traditional media, I wanted to ask Mina, because Mina, you work with all types of media, whether it's social, digital, or traditional. How has, like, the traditional media space changed in the last few years? I mean, you know, there's reduced staff at some of the traditional media. Some of the traditional media are, you know, having quite a tough time financially. But at the same time, you were saying before that there's some really interesting opportunities. What are the things that you see in traditional media from a PR and promotion perspective that really move the needle for your clients at Navarro's?
Yeah, the hardest part, it's been more this year because we saw a lot of staff cuts in a lot of media. So the PR teams, we have more work. Sometimes I need to deliver the whole content. Sometimes we find ourselves like filming or doing a Zoom, preparing interviews and pitching the whole package. You know, sometimes we pick, you know, everything included, you know, the artist responding, filming from their house, finding that storytelling of the artist. And more than ever with developing acts, I do more media training, so we find that voice that is different. Because again, we have so many releases, so I need to find that voice that it's unique. So they say, okay, why should I interview this artist that is different from other 100,000 urban artists, original Mexican artists? So more than ever, we need to give more training so they find their voice, you know, because sometimes not the artist or the staff, they know that the story behind it's newsworthy and can create a connection with a new fan base. We also had to adapt to create virtual events, to adapt to teach our clients to work from home, how to do a correction that looks great on TV, how to have the confidence to do live events. Like when the pandemic started, we brainstormed with Rich Music team, and we were one of the first ones to do a concert series during the pandemic at the end of March. And we saw a great amount of coverage, and most importantly, streamings, and we saw a rise in their catalogs. And then it was like how we evolved with the pandemic, with the changes in consumption of the clients and the fan base. So it's been very creative. We see now PR boxes sending to the media, sending to fan base like it used to be 20 years ago. So we are going back to the basics again, also like how to grab to attention from a journalist, or even probably you have seen a rise on presence from releases 80.
For sure.
You're going to receive 100 press releases. How my press release is going to stand out? So we're going back to
cut through the noise.
When we used to send press releases in paper by mail with the press kits at that time, and that doesn't mean that I'm very old.
Totally. I mean, I have to say, I've heard journalists say that, you know, like there's so many releases now on Fridays that they just delete every single email they receive on a Friday because it's just like, it's impossible to get through that, you know. It's like, it's so ridiculous. And so I've been saying to
I read every single one of them. I don't know. You should tell your journalist friends they need to step it up.
I know, but the reality is they won't. So what I've said to artists is, I'm like, don't release on a Friday. Move it to a different day of the week. Like, push the fucking boundaries of this industry and don't like just follow everybody and do it on Friday. You know,
copy paste. Yeah. What do you think?
I will add to that, actually, Paul. It's so funny to hear that because on the distro side, it's like, please release on a Friday. Please do us this favor.
Okay.
So it's very different.
I have a different school of thought. I could say it actually helps distro, but that's for another conversation.
Yeah, I want to have that conversation.
We're going to put stuff out on Sundays moving forward.
But something important also to know, like, now I need like 14 leads in advance to send a press release or a pitch. So because since there's so many releases on Fridays, maybe Billboard have 4 or 5 spaces for new releases, and then you have all the Easters releasing new music. So when I'm telling my clients, let's do a pre-save, pre-campaign. So you start with let's send the release on Tuesday. If you're artist or a B-lister, so you can grab more attention. You're gonna get lost on Friday.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and sometimes they say, no, I want it on Friday. I say, no, like sometimes you need to send your
momentum
to grab that on a day that is cluttered. So that's also part of the education to artists and to find that strategy. You can release on Friday, but you can announce on Wednesday and do a pre-save or a teaser of the music video so the media can write about you. Otherwise, you're gonna get lost in the thousands of emails that they receive and they don't open on Friday.
Mine is my new best friend. I'm just gonna say that right now. I'm just gonna lock in.
Yeah.
She's saying all the right things.
No, and sometimes they don't like it when you say the truth, and they say, "Oh my God, but it's cañona." But I get the feedback from the media. They say, "Hey, don't send me the releases on Friday."
Yeah.
So
but imagine like all of these artists that we're talking, you know, in most cases here, you know, the ones that we're sending out, you know, on a Friday, minus, you know, trying to cut through the noise with some of our clients. These are artists that have already released a ton of videos, singles, been touring for years. What about the new artists? And there's so many new artists watching us here today. How do these new artists cut through the noise and get on the radar? Like, where do you begin as a new artist?
My no bullshit answer is always like, keep your head down and focus on what you want. Just keep your head down. Stop focusing on who's getting New Music Friday, who's getting, 100%, who's literally keep your head down, focus on what you want. Get a regular release schedule out there. Know what you're actually doing with your socials. What is the plan for the year? Don't just plan for release, plan for the year. Exactly. When you're talking about release schedules, when you're talking about digital, when you're talking about all of your strategy, you are not just talking about release by release basis anymore. You are talking about, what does your year look like? What does this calendar look like? And I feel like I get a lot of looks that are just like, no, that's not, we didn't come to you for this. And they kind of move on. And I get that. I really do, because there is this mentality like, no, this is the release. This is my art. This is what but it's so holistic now, where you're just really going after, like, what does the year look like for you? And what are you trying to focus on? And yeah, I'm sorry, I feel very strongly about this one.
No, it's so true. And I think it also comes with like staying organized, right? Like keeping track of things. Like if there's an idea, that you have or someone else has, like follow up on it, keep it brewing. Like don't just let things like fall behind. And as you said, plan ahead. Like you have to plan ahead. A year is really ideal, at 6 months at least, How
about you, Gil? Do you see any like classic mistakes that artists make starting out when it comes to digital marketing or their presence on socials?
Sure. I think that, the way, the magic that everybody on this panel is able to do, it makes it seem like it's effortless, like it like literally can happen at, the switch of, the flip of a switch. People like, oh, I have a record, I want to put it out tomorrow. And that's part of the magic. That's part of like what makes what we're talking about so compelling, because there's all this behind the scenes. Paul talking about, the Black Pumas, 2 years, in the making, and they're in Grammy Central this week, and so I think that the mistakes that you can make is that you think that it can happen tomorrow. AJ mentioned earlier, you have to be patient. You also have to, figure out who your community is before you can conquer the world. That's the big mistake I think people make, is like, they want to conquer the world, but they don't even know, and I'm talking in like almost like physical terms here. It's like, who are the people on your corner? Who are the people who will be listening to your music in the first place? Who are those fans? And I think that's, again, that goes hand in hand with the beauty of digital marketing, and the artists hopefully knowing, or having the people, their team surrounding them, figuring out who their community is. You got to figure out who your community is first before you can go global. And,
exactly. 100%.
So I think it's just, again, it's the magic, and it's also, it could be a double-edged sword of the beauty of what you guys do is, you make it seem effortless, and it's a heck of a lot of work.
It's funny because, like, when I think about, putting on my Facebook, Instagram hat on, when I think about what's the first thing I want to tell artists that are starting out, it's like, make sure that you've got, like, really the basics, like, make sure you have an account, that you've got access to your account, not like 10 other random people. Make sure you got two-factor authentication. It's not sexy, but it's important, because the thing is, if you go out and conquer the world, you didn't do the basics at the beginning. You go out and conquer the world. You've now got like millions of followers. You've got your hit, and then you lose your account because you got hacked, because you never got around to. And believe me, like, we deal with this stuff daily. It's just so that's like, account hygiene is like, and making sure you're hitting all the surfaces, right? Like live, feed, stories, on both apps. That's what I would say. But we could spend hours on this.
I'm curious, is that the official terminology as account hygiene? Because
I've never heard of that either.
All about account hygiene. I used to have trouble saying those words, but now I'm adamant that the account hygiene is very important.
You say it hourly, at least.
Yeah,
all the time, several times a day. It's like brushing my teeth. I don't want to
use that on a particular artist. You need to maintain account hygiene.
Do it.
Sure.
Do it. They'll learn the hard way otherwise. Hey, Hiki, I have another question for you. We're coming up to the hour here, so I know you've got your finger on the pulse. You know what's coming next. You're a very innovative and creative exec over at TikTok. What are the trends that you're seeing, for the future? What are some of the trends you're seeing in the digital marketing space and promo for the future?
That's $1 million question, right? So no, I honestly think that the future is built by especially the new artists and the new generations. They're the one always surprising all of us. And I, more than understanding or trying to say what's the future, what I know is the new generations have other everything, other rhythms of producing, understanding themselves, building presence on the digital, being very transparent, defending cause. I think one thing that I'm seeing on TikTok is how much value this generation gives to positivity, inclusive, totally. And of course creativity. It's a very different way to discuss on the social space. Maybe we were not literally educated to be there, right? We had to learn, and we were not very well educated around all of those. But now we see those generation way more focus on that, which also opens the doors for the artists to have a different type of presence. I like very much what I have seen this artist in Mexico doing. His name is Leon Leiden, and he has being an EDM more producer, and then he started to produce music during the pandemic on TikTok, and he had a small base by the time, but he started really to share his very creative musical ideas there. At some point, he had an unfinished song. He proposed it to the audience. The audience sent him back more than 1,000 complementary parts for his track. He built out the song called Hitana when the song came out, and it was fully built in cooperation inside TikTok without fear, taking feedback. The song reached #1 trending songs in Mexico for an unsigned, very independent artist. Now he's getting big, he's getting all the attention he had. But I mean, the whole way to be there is very different. But there is, of course, this, I think if you have to think on the future, now I would say that the small word is UGC, right? It's not from now, but it's still ongoing, and how the music business are going to understand the value of UGC. How you're going to pass from this phase where basically you wanted to know what to say to your audience, and now you are just provoking your audience, because your audience is as much active as yourself, even if not more. So everything that you do, you're not saying and there is an end. It's a provocation that will have a viral effect or sometimes negative effect. So this whole relationship and how you build based on UGC strategy, I think your presence on the digital, I honestly think it's something that it's way more work again. But it's way more work maybe now that we're all of us doing manually and testing manually, and in the future we're going to have better tools, better ways to address this. But I think this is the gold mine in a sense, not from today, but the one that's still to be explored by all of the creative folks around the world, especially artists, right?
Super interesting. Thank you, Hiki. I would say just top of mind, and now we need to switch very quickly for the last few minutes to the audience questions. Top of mind for me would be doubling down on data. And we discussed that at the beginning. It's going to continue to be more and more important, more and more granular. And obviously, I think that the VR, AR is going to become more and more important in the world, in the role of music in all of that. I believe that how we share and consume music inside a messaging ecosystem is going to potentially be something that will evolve over time. And then, of course, everyone's been talking about for weeks and months now, which is audio, the whole Clubhouse thing, and how that, how music and connecting with fans and community through audio will evolve as well. So much going on. Like, we've only just scratched the surface in the space of the last 55 minutes. We've got 2 questions from the audience, and I want to make sure that LAMC audience is getting the due respect and attention from us, given that they have been with us throughout this week at LAMC. So first question is for Mina, and second question is actually for me. So the first question is, how important is getting, actually not just for Mina and anyone else who wants to answer it, potentially Paul, but Mina, how important is getting press in today's market?
It's very important, and a key fact is to learn what media is going to drive traffic to increase your streaming, ticket sales. Because sometimes we have clients that they say, I just want this media, but this media not necessarily will drive you traffic toward your goals. And more than ever, we can see the data of what are the drivers in the KPIs of the releases. So media, television, performing, it's so important right now. Going to a radio interview as well. Like this will increase your numbers in socials, and I can see the spikes when I go to Tengo, for example, and I see when we do TV, we see the spikes in conversations. Everything is not digital. We need to do the 360. That's my recommendation to new artists and managers.
I will add to it. I hate to jump in the middle too, because I know Paul, you got something that you want to add, but I will say too, from the distro side, we recommend it pretty often. If you're at that level where PR makes sense, having something to go back to DSPs and talk about is really important for our side of it. And one of the things that PR can provide is a regular, constant stream of something. You know what I mean? If Billboard is talking about it, if Remezcla is talking about it, if anybody is talking about it, that gives us something to talk about too. So I will say that PR does provide that little angle, and it does come in very handy.
But PR also isn't just like new release oriented. I think it's so important to think about PR in a broader way and approach opportunities that, are different, in terms of just trying to think of more interesting content as well. Because if you're a consumer, like you're just reading about, the new songs or the new albums, it gets boring too. So I think it's important to approach PR and just like the thought process, as you all have said, about like the lifestyle of the artist, right? Like things that the artists may like that are outside of music, and different types of interest, and also media that's not just the traditional like music media, because the reality is music media is not dead, but it's pretty limited in terms of the opportunities for promotion.
Well, when you're talking to PR, and I love that you touch on this too, is that you are talking about people who can help you frame your story. What is that? What are you trying to present to people? And these are the people who can help you tell that story. So I think that PR, while not integral for every single project that comes through, every single, thing that comes through, there are key, linchpins, whatever you want to call them, cornerstones to your account, whatever you're trying to do for the year. I think that PR can really dial into. So,
okay. And I agree with you, because sometimes they don't understand why I'm not nominated now in these awards. And I say what we're building right now during this year in 2021, it's what we're gonna receive next year in 2022. And again, generation that they just want to see immediate results. But if you want to grow your career and be nominated, for example, for Best New Artist, it's a whole year of work, analyzing data, how we increase sales, how we can be in the top, because you're competing with the top A-listers to be nominated. So it's a 1 year plan. And then when you reach that goal, let's move to the next goal in your music career.
This is amazing advice. This is absolute gold. So like 360, be part of the conversation year round. It doesn't matter whether it's digital or press. But I think, the conversation is really, really a key piece. And then taking the second question, which is actually strangely linked in the way I'm going to answer this in the last minute that we've got before we wrap up. The last question was from Ian in Quito, and this question is from Claudia in Buenos Aires. How important is it to have your Instagram verified? I would say that, judging by the amount of people who ask me this question every day of the week, it seems to be very important to a lot of people.
And how do you get verified, man?
Yeah, right. So I'm gonna very quickly connect it to the last question. Press, really important. So if you want to get verified, I'll like, for me, the sniff test is this: put your name as an artist into Google or into your favorite search engine, and see what comes up in terms of the first page results. If you see press from quality media outlets in any language that is about the artist, not mentions the artist, is about the artist, preferably even in the headline. If you get those results on page one, that's going to be pretty much a slam dunk. But if you are an artist that hasn't built up a body of press yet, and which is why it's so important to have a press strategy in addition to everything else we talked about, as though that wasn't enough. If you don't have press results that come up on the first page of Google and you're trying to get it verified, it's probably not going to work out. It's not going to be so easy, because really the verification is about being a public figure. And if you are a public figure that doesn't have any press, you're probably not a public figure. So so that's pretty much my advice about getting verified on Instagram. Okay, so we've got 60 seconds to go, which leaves me just enough time to thank our illustrious panel. Thank you, AJ, Mina, Gil, Paul, and Hiki. Great to see you again. And thank you to Mia and Jenny and Tomas at LAMC. And thank you all for joining us today at this digital marketing and promo panel. It's been a pleasure.
Adi, you're an amazing host. I love it. Like chatting with all of us.
Thank you very much. It's my first time moderating a panel, so hopefully it's uphill from me.
You did great. You did wonderful, and thank you guys. You guys all remind me of why I'm doing this.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's great to see you.
Sitting on my couch all day working on my laptop, that's for sure. So it's really wonderful to see you all.
You guys are so smart. I need to see you more often. Hopefully in a more not in a Zoom setting, but in a real setting.
Please.
Absolutely. Stay in touch, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.